By is Michael Lucci. He's CEO and founder of State Armor. We're going to find out what that is and talk about these Chinese nationals attempting to smuggle a pathogen into the U.S. Every time China doesn't get its way, it tries to kill everybody, seems to be. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on. This is a critical topic. The Chinese Communist Party is attempting a broad asymmetric warfare against the United States, and we need to put a stop to it.
Yeah, amen to that. You know, they gave us COVID. Oh, Trump was the only one who said China. Everybody else crapped their pants and called him racist and every other thing. So, I mean, let's call it what it is. It's the Chinese trying to kill us.
Well, the Communist Party has a broad strategy for warfare across the United States. They actually laid it out in 1999 in a publication that talked about using diseases, using drugs, using chemicals, using bioweapons against their greatest enemy, which they have defined the United States as their greatest enemy since about 1990. Mm-hmm. They published a book in 99 called Asymmetric Warfare about attacking the United States in all these asymmetric or non-conventional, non-traditional, non-military ways. Attacking our agricultural system is a key part of that in their mind. Unleashing diseases is a key part of that. And then notably, flooding our country with deadly fentanyl is a key part of that asymmetric warfare. This is all coming from China. It's all intentional.
Yeah. So how do we catch these guys bringing in the pathogen? Was there a spy? I mean, how did we catch them?
Well, that's a good question, and I'm sure that there's probably some counterintelligence concern about disclosing that. I'm guessing that we had to have had some idea that something bad was happening with these scientists at the University of Michigan, because there's now 3. As of yesterday, there was another arrested. So there are now 3 Chinese scientists at the University of Michigan who have been arrested for, bringing in diseases to wipe out our wheat crops and wipe out other crops. So we had to have some idea that they were doing this, would be my assumption. Otherwise, Border Control just did a really good job of searching them for these types of pathogens. But they found them in their boots in places like that. And my understanding is that these scientists admitted that they had lied and that admitted that they were bringing this stuff in intentionally. So these are very clear acts of what I keep calling asymmetric warfare, of attempts to undermine our system by exploiting our openness to the world, which is generally a good thing. But when it comes to the Chinese Communist Party, we have to take extreme security measures in hand, because they are talking about being at war with us for over a generation. We have to actually recognize that they're doing that and start responding to it.
Well, I don't think Trump is scared of them, so I think they're in for a little bit of a rodeo.
I think that that's right. I think that President Trump uniquely, not just amongst American leaders, but amongst world leaders, has been willing to confront the Communist Party. He did it in his first term, and now he's doing it again. Now, we do have to recognize that President Trump has some limitations on his ability to maneuver because of previous leaders and previous decisions to allow the Communist Party to infiltrate us in various ways. I'll give you just one example. There was a headline from Reuters 2 weeks ago about solar inverters. These are an input into our power grid. Solar inverters and batteries that are coming from China that have back doors that allow them to turn off the power in the United States. If you think it's bad in the United States, it's even worse in Europe, in the United Kingdom, where they decide to go even more heavy into solar. And so that is just one example. This is how the Communist Party does warfare. They try to surround you with difficult decisions. They try to surround you with the ability to shut down your ability to maneuver. And that's why we have to just start rolling back all their advances, all their gains within the United States and within allied countries.
Well, and that's why they keep saying we have what you need to keep yourself running under the Green New Deal or the whatever bull kind of crap the Democrats were trying to mandate on us. That would have made us so beholden to China that would have made it even easier for them to do this.
Well, that's actually a very specific strategy that the Communist Party has been advancing, is to get America dependent on their green technologies. One of our great blessings is our energy independence because of our ability to use hydrocarbons, nuclear, other sources. And they see that as something that they want to weaken, and that they've induced us in many parts of the country to get dependent on their wind power, their solar power. And you could be agnostic on what's the best power source. Is it nat gas? Is it nuke? Is it wind? Is it solar? What is absolutely crystal clear is that if you are using their technologies, that is a national security threat. So even if you love solar, if you love wind, you have to recognize that if you're using their technologies that gives them the ability to just turn off the power, that is a no-go. We need to stop using their technologies. And so they have induced us to be on their supply chains, which actually makes us less resilient, and it actually makes them more resilient for energy. So even if you like solar, even if you like wind, it's a horrible decision to be getting locked in on their supply chain.
So why would we do it?
I think that really, if you trace back, and we're going to be releasing a report on exactly this in the next 2 days, they have conducted very successful influence operations, particularly in the progressive parts of the United States, to get politicians to really want to do a lot of this green energy stuff. And so there's Energy Fund China is this huge nonprofit that's been doing activism all across the United States. It's overseen by Communist Party officials. They've been activating politicians and activists to get the United States to transition onto Chinese supply chains for energy. And again, in the long run, maybe solar is going to be the right thing. Definitely we need to be using nuke. Our power in natural gas and oil is huge. We should never walk away from that. All these different solutions, I think, should be able to compete, but we should never be going onto their supply chains. They show us over and over and over and over again that they will use any dependence that we have upon them essentially for warfare, to leverage against us. And unfortunately, they're doing that right now in their negotiations with President Trump. This isn't President Trump's fault, but China has essentially cornered the market on what are called rare earth minerals, rare earth elements, and those aren't just for wind and solar. We use those for military inputs. We use those for the cell phones we use every day. And so they are showing that if we depend on them for anything, they will weaponize that and leverage that against us.
Okay, so why are they they're bringing in stuff to wipe out our food, then we'd be reliant on them for food as well, or do they just want us to die?
They just want to reduce our independence. We probably would not be importing food from China. They're actually also dependent on food imports, but that's how they look at it. If they are dependent on food imports, then they want us to be dependent on food imports, whereas we're traditionally the breadbasket of the world. They want to weaken that advantage we have. So wherever we're strong, they want to make us weaker, and wherever they can, they want to make us dependent specifically upon them. So they see that a strength that the United States has, and they want to chip away at that.
Well, and the whole one world order thing has gotten a bad name because it just kind of sounds bad, but everybody says it's world commerce. We've got to get along with everybody. If the world's going to, work with each other and we're all going to be in unity and harmony and the economic status of the entire world is going to be good, we have to learn how to play together nicely. But it doesn't sound to me like China wants to play that game. It wants to be the leader of the pack.
Well, this has been the argument since we let them in the World Trade Organization in 2001, is that we would all get along, that the communists would stop being communists, and they would become more like us.
Yeah,
that
right.
has absolutely not happened. Unfortunately, we've probably become more like them in the meantime. And since then, they have weaponized their industrial capacity, subsidized, weaponized, and undercut pricing just to wipe out Western producers, America and our allies, wipe out our producers for key inputs that we need for both civilian and military use. And so having a U.S.-led global order where we're calling the shots, where our democratic allies are following our lead, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That is strength. That's American strength. But allowing in communist countries that want to specifically use these institutions against us is a disaster. They openly say that they want to displace the United States and that they're going to do it by really corrupting the global institutions that the United States built and leads. We got to be kicking them out, facing them out of these institutions, and creating our own supply chains that are, primarily made in America, but otherwise made in the countries that are our military allies.
Yeah, sure would be nice if we could get people to get off Temu and Shein, wouldn't it? Yeah, that'd be great. So this pathogen that they were bringing in and they were caught, did they say they were doing it for their country by themselves? Did they have direct orders to bring it in from the government? Do we know any of that? And if so, is that not an act of war?
I would categorize this as an act of war. I think that we have to let the FBI, Director Kash Patel had a statement about this yesterday about what they know so far, and so they are investigating. But if you're bringing in a pathogen that is designed to wipe out, what's designed to wipe out is a lot of America's wheat crop. Mm-hmm. If you're bringing that in, that is, let's say, quite strange and suspicious to begin with, and then you're not disclosing it until you get caught, that this is some sort of extreme criminal activity. Whether the Communist Party is involved, in most cases, if something evil is happening, the Communist Party is involved. That's the safe assumption.
Yeah.
Versus these random Chinese nationals just doing this on their own.
Right. Okay, so they bring this in. It does what it does. Fentanyl's coming in. It does what it does. I mean, they're coming at us from all angles. So at what point do we start coming at them? What can we do?
I think that the way that the United States wins is we just tell them we're not playing this game anymore. We tried to give you a chance by bringing you into our trade, our global order led by the United States. You broke every single rule and every single promise. And so what the United States needs to do is phase out our interactions with Communist China. This is how we win. Their strategy to win is actually to deeply infiltrate us, to make us dependent, to have us so intertwined that we can't separate from one another. We need to broadly separate. There are hundreds of millions of excellent Chinese people, but the Communist Party that leads the country is just, it's like mafia. First they're mafia against their own people, now they're mafia against the rest of the globe. We have to phase out any dependence we have with them and get ready for them to launch attacks on us, which they're also planning.
Right, and that's why we have to desperately help Taiwan. We have to.
Taiwan is really the front line. If China talks all the time, if there's one thing that their leader talks about, it's that he wants to take Taiwan by force if necessary. If they do that, they will have split our alliance structure in the Pacific, because if you look north, there's Korea and Japan, military allies. If you look south, Philippines, a military ally. If China is able to split that alliance structure, we're going to have a lot of problems in the Pacific region. And that is the decisive global theater in this century. It's already over 50% of global GDP and growing. So whoever really calls the shots in the Indo-Pacific, that's who's going to be leading the world. Right.
And that's why even the Taiwanese do not want to be part of China. They'll tell you that themselves. They do not want it. They very much want to be American, if anything else, or just Taiwan. They want to be themselves. But I only have a minute left, but I have to ask you, there is also the threat that they are bringing in, or they have released, like a COVID-21 or whatever it's called, some sort of harsher form of COVID has been released. And I don't know if they've done it to their own people, but is there any truth to that?
I wouldn't put anything past the Communist Party. I don't know exactly what new diseases they might be releasing, but they're certainly developing weapons, and they're talking about this. They're developing weapons that target people based on their genetics, their ethnicity, right, so that they can create a weapon that doesn't affect Chinese people, but it does affect everyone else. They talk about that, and that's why one of the things that states need to do is to phase out all Chinese genetic sequencers and other genetic equipment, because those are being used to create weapons against us.
I thought we were getting somewhere in this world where we could all play nice, but I know China is very, very afraid of the United States, so we do have that card. We do have that card right now. They're afraid of what we might do to depower them, and I think that's the road we're on.
That is the road we're on. This is, the decisive conflict of the 21st century is whether the world is going to be led by the U.S. structure that's really based on constitutional liberty, or the Communist Party of China structure that everyone hates. The people in China hate the Communist Party. All their neighbors hate the Communist Party. but they are, really approaching this mafia approach to the rest of the world to try to subdue all the other world's powers.
How very German of them from the 1940s. I'm just saying, it seems like it's the same thing.
It's very similar. I mean, the Germans conducted a genocide. The Communist Party is conducting a genocide against some of its own people. The revisionist powers, we have to put a stop to the advances that they're making.
And where do people learn more? Because I'm almost out of time.
StateArmor.org and at StateArmor on Twitter. That's where we're active on social media, and we work in state houses across the country to protect states against the Communist Party.
Okay. Thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for the information today. I don't think a lot of people pay attention to stuff like this, and that's what the show is for, to bring to the table thoughts and ways of looking at the world that you might not have been doing before, because God knows the alphabet soup stations aren't going to tell you any of this because they're basically pro-Chinese. So a big thank you to you, Michael Lucci, CEO and founder of State Armor. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.